Hi, I'm Peter Souza. Let's install QA Shadow Report for Cypress. QA Shadow Report sends Cypress test results to Google Sheets or CSV. Let's go to installation. So there's two steps to get started: install and setup. Okay, here you can see a project to get things started. Now let's go back to our command here, install. Wonderful. We are installed. Now let's go to that setup command. Now during setup, you will see a few prompts here that will help you through installation. So we are going to use Cypress. Configuration file is required. Make sure that path is correct. That is correct. Okay. Wonderful. Configuration file is created. Now we need to install some dependencies here, and I'm going to use npm. Okay, great. So we now have QA Shadow Report and our dependencies, and we have our configuration file. This config file contains a lot of placeholder data and examples. This types definition is for TypeScript. I use that in most of my projects. This demo does not use TypeScript though. We'll skip that. Here you can see arrays, lists of team names. This is if your different departments are covered by specific individuals grouped into teams. Could be anything. You can leave it blank if you have no teams. You can leave this commented out if there are no test types, but you may have your tests arranged in some kind of type. Test categories, smoke, regression, sanity. These are for individual labels for tests themselves. You can leave that commented out if you don't have that. Google Spreadsheet URL. So this takes in the entire URL. If you want to use Google Spreadsheets, this is going to be required. Google Key File Path. This is your service worker credential. So you will need to enable API access to a spreadsheet. And I have instructions on how to go over that. Test data, this is a path to the results. So all of your test results are going to get compiled into a JSON file using our dependencies that were installed down here, Mocha Awesome and Mocha Awesome Merge. CSV downloads path. If you want to use a CSV instead of Google Sheet, you can specify where you want that to be. Weekly summary start date. If you want weekly summaries, you can add this here. If you remove it simply like that, you will have no weekly summary. That covers the config file. Now, what is required here? The test data is required. If you want to run a report in any CSV or Google Sheet, you will need test data. Sheet setup guide. Here's for Cypress. We've already installed these dependencies. We need to pick a Google spreadsheet and then create a service account to access that spreadsheet. So let's add our spreadsheet right now. Here's one that I like to use for testing. Go ahead and put that in there, the entire URL. Service account credentials. This can be a little bit of a journey, but I do have a different package mentioned here that has a great instructions. Service account. So a service account has its own process, and this package here has really great documentation on it. I would recommend reading into this. Very, very detailed, easy to use. Once you create the key, make sure it's downloaded. That's what you will need to access your Google Sheet. In your Google Sheet, you will share it and use the email address of your service worker. Share it with your service worker as editor. This will allow QA Shadow Report to write to your Google Sheet and read when creating summaries. Now, with your service account created, put that into your package here. This is what's going to allow the API to access your Google Sheet. Make sure you don't commit this. This should be in git ignore. Don't make this public. Similarly, these can be set into environment variables to not be public. All of these can be put into environment variables, which is not a bad idea. Now with the config file, team names, test types, test categories, right here we have the explanation for all of these different arrays that are required, and here's a little example of what it could look like. Let's go into package.json and see what we can do here. We want to add these. This is going to be handy if you want to add this to a pipeline, CI/CD. This is the report directory, which is important, Cypress results. This also plays into our config file, right? Cypress results. So we'll need to change that. Overwrite is false, so we persist the JSON files that are compiled instead of erasing one after the other. No HTML report is required. It's in JSON. After that, we merge. This is a Mocha Awesome command here. So this merges all the test results and puts them into one file, Cypress results output.json. That output file we do report generate. So let's see report generate. This is QA Shadow Report Cypress. So this is down here, QA Shadow Report Cypress. We run this command and it generates a report based on our output.json. And if we have a Google Sheet specified and a credential, it will send those results to Google Sheets by default. If no sheet is specified, it will not send it to a sheet. If you want a CSV, you will need to add CSV to the end here. The CSV flag will need to be present. Now, in our example here, you can see we have a few different nested folders and specs here, a few different things going on. We can run these, just a normal npx Cypress run, or we can use our new command now, which is Cypress test. On a lot of mine, I have a lot of my projects, I have it set to Cypress nightly or nightly report. I have something a little more descriptive, but this is what the demo has, so we'll use that. Now let's see npm run. So you can see it's running all the processes, in order as expected. Let's come back when this is done. Here you can see a few tests have run already. We're seeing multiple JSON files, which is what overwrite false does. It creates multiple. So there we go, using default test types. So in our config, we didn't specify any test types. So we use default category list, default team names. We didn't specify any of those. Daily report created for July 11th, 2025. Now let's see what that looks like. So we did use this URL here. Let's see what it looks like. July 11th. Okay, and here we are. So API test pass, 7 of 9. A little formula up there. More metrics here. Number of passed tests with percentage, failed tests, skipped pending, total tests. So here we can see green, red, and skipped. Easy. We also see the error. This is handy if this is something you want to note and work on. Runtime, area. This is in billing, login, navigation, dashboard. The spec name, so calculation, user statistics, and the test name here. And this failed one here. Let's see how we can deal with that. Basic web functionality group 1 contains the DuckDuckGo logo. So there seems to be a logo missing here. So this would be login, customers, basic web contains DuckDuck. Login, customers, basic web functionality group 1 contains the DuckDuckGo logo. This is failing. We need to figure out why that's failing. Here we can write the priority, whatever your team calls that, high priority, urgent, and its status might be not documented, right? So we haven't even written a bug for this one yet. Or it might be in progress or code review. Now let's try going back to our package.json here, and let's see if we can do a little CSV. So there we go. Now we're going to create a CSV with the same command, npm run Cypress test. This will go through the whole thing and create a CSV in the downloads folder in our Cypress project. Okay, let's finish this run here, and you can see the same notes, all default, using default downloads folder. You can also specify different downloads folder. This is helpful if you are running this in a virtual machine like GitHub Actions. You can specify a different location, or even send it through, Mail-a-Sor or something. And we have our path of where it's saved. So let's go to downloads, and look, there it is. This also has the same metrics as our sheet here, just not in a readable format. But let's open this up and see what it actually looks like. All right, so here it is. This gives us the same metrics in the header here, the categories, right? The column names. It doesn't look as great as Google Sheets, but this is an option if your company is very tight on security and the only option you have is a CSV. I had to do this in some really high security jobs. Now back to our install documents here. We've created a script that we can easily run and integrate into our CI/CD here. And that's the end of the game. Everything else is optional. Okay, well that's it. QA Shadow Report. Give it a try. Check it out. Install it. Troubleshoot. Complain. Write me some emails. It's here. Repository. Homepage. There's me. It's open source. You can visit it. You can contribute. You can open issues. If you have problems, let me know. Find me on social media. I'm easy. Happy coding.